Rome's money collapse, the debt that destroyed an empire, Rome. The empire of marble and steel. Its armies stretched across continents. Its emperors commanded unimaginable wealth, and its monuments promised eternity. But here's the shocking truth. Rome's famous silver coin, the denarius, fell from 95% silver to barely scraps of metal. And when that coin collapsed, so did the empire that depended on it. Most people think Rome was destroyed by barbarians storming the gates. But the real collapse started much earlier, with coins in the marketplace, promises that could never be kept, and a mountain of debt that grew larger every year. At its peak, Rome looked unshakable. Gold and silver poured in from conquered lands. Roads stretched for thousands of miles. Trade boomed. To the outside world, Rome looked like it would last forever. But inside the empire, cracks were forming. Wars drained the treasury. Citizens demanded free grain, free entertainment, endless luxuries. And emperors had only one answer: spend more. At first, spending and borrowing made Rome stronger. More soldiers, more monuments, more glory. But every empire eventually faces the bill. And when Rome couldn't pay in real gold or silver anymore, it turned to tricks that rotted its money from within. And that's where the story truly begins. The moment the Roman coin, once trusted across the world, became nothing more than an illusion of wealth. The same pattern that destroyed Rome is still alive today. Governments borrow, inflate, and promise prosperity forever. Rome believed it too, until the money collapsed. This is the story of how Rome's wealth crumbled, how debt hollowed out the greatest empire in history, and why its warning still matters for us. The debased coin for centuries, Rome's money was trusted across the world. The denarius, made of solid silver, was a coin everyone respected. Soldiers were paid in it. Merchants traded with it. Farmers saved it. A single coin could buy bread, wine, or oil. That trust was Rome's secret power. But wars are expensive, and so are empires. The treasury ran dry, and when there wasn't enough silver left to mint coins, emperors turned to a dangerous trick: debasement. Instead of pure silver, they began mixing in copper, tin, even lead. The coins looked the same on the outside, stamped with the emperor's face, but inside they were worth far less. At first, no one noticed. The coins felt heavy, they shone like silver, they spent like silver, but little by little, trust began to fade. A denarius that had once been 95% silver dropped to 50%, then to 20%, and eventually to just 5% real silver. The rest was worthless filler. Imagine saving for years, holding a handful of coins, only to wake up one day and realize they were melting into nothing. Prices soared. A loaf of bread that once cost 1 coin now cost 10. Soldiers demanded higher wages. Merchants doubled their prices. Families who had once been secure suddenly found themselves unable to afford the basics. This wasn't just inflation on a chart. It was hunger in the streets. It was anger in the markets. And most dangerously, it was the slow death of trust. Because when people no longer trust their money, they no longer trust their empire. Yet emperors couldn't stop. Debasement became normal. Every new ruler pressed more fake coins into circulation, pretending the empire was richer than it really was. But fake wealth always carries a price. And when the coins could no longer fool the people, Rome turned to its next weapon: taxes. Crushing endless taxes. Crushing taxes. When Rome's coins lost their value, emperors turned to the only tool left: taxes. At first, taxes were manageable: a share of harvests, a portion of trade, contributions for the army. But as debased money kept losing its worth, Rome demanded more and more and more. For the ordinary Roman, it was devastating. Farmers who worked through droughts and disease were forced to hand over grain they could barely spare. Merchants watched tax collectors seize profits before they could even pay their workers. Small landowners, crushed by impossible demands, abandoned their farms altogether, and the system was never fair. The rich found ways to escape. They bribed officials, manipulated records, or hid their wealth in land that couldn't easily be taxed. Meanwhile, the burden fell on the poor, the farmers, soldiers, and laborers who had the least to give. Picture this: you've worked the fields all year. You fight hunger, fight storms, fight the soil itself. At harvest, just when you think you've survived, the collectors arrive at your door. They take half, then they take more. Your family starves, and still Rome says you owe more. This wasn't just unfair, it was destructive. Families broke apart, villages emptied. Citizens who once felt pride in the empire now felt nothing but anger. Loyalty turned into resentment. And here's the cruel irony: the more Rome taxed, the less its people produced. Farms grew barren, markets dried up, the economy shrank, and instead of pulling back, emperors raised taxes again, trapping the empire in a cycle it could never escape. The middle class collapsed. The poor gave up hope. Rome's strength was rotting from within. But even crushing taxes weren't enough. The empire still needed more coins, more soldiers, more festivals, more luxuries. And so Rome turned to its final fatal answer: borrowing. The endless spiral of debt spiral and collapse. Rome had drained its silver. It had crushed its citizens with taxes. But the hunger of the empire never stopped. Emperors wanted more wars to prove their power, more monuments to leave behind their names, more festivals to keep the crowds entertained. And when taxes and debased coins weren't enough, they reached for their final weapon: debt. At first, borrowing looked like an easy solution. Need money for soldiers? Borrow. Need grain for the poor? Borrow. Need to pay off old debts? Borrow again, but debt is a trap. Every loan demanded repayment, and repayment meant interest. Rome wasn't building new wealth, it was recycling old promises. Imagine it. Today's soldiers were paid with money borrowed yesterday, and tomorrow's soldiers would be paid with money borrowed today. A cycle with no escape. Every new emperor inherited mountains of debt. And instead of cutting spending, which would make them unpopular, they borrowed even more. The debt monster grew larger until no one could control it. Confidence collapsed. Lenders stopped trusting Rome. Merchants hesitated to trade. Even soldiers, once loyal, began to doubt if they would ever be paid. By the 3rd century, the empire was hollow. Money was worthless. Taxes were unbearable. Debt was unpayable. So when the barbarians finally came, the Goths, the Vandals, the invaders at the gates, Rome was already broken. Its armies couldn't fight without pay. Its farmers couldn't feed the cities. Its citizens no longer believed in the empire's strength. Rome didn't fall in a single night. It crumbled from within long before the first gate was breached. And here's the chilling truth. Rome's debt spiral wasn't unique. It's a pattern, a warning, and it has echoed through history again and again. Which brings us not just to the fall of Rome, but to the world we live in today. Modern parallels. Rome may feel like ancient history, but its collapse is closer to us than most people realize. Today, the world owes more than $300 trillion in debt. Governments print money at record speed. Just like Rome mixed silver with copper, taxes rise, but the middle class shrinks. The rich protect themselves. Ordinary families struggle to keep up. The pattern is the same: borrow, spend, inflate, repeat. It worked for a while in Rome, and it works for a while today. But no empire, ancient or modern, can escape debt forever. Think about it. When trust in money breaks, armies, palaces, and monuments mean nothing. Trust is the real foundation of wealth. And once that trust disappears, collapse is only a matter of time. Rome's leaders thought they could cheat the system. That fake coins, endless taxes, and constant borrowing would keep the empire alive. For a time it worked, but in the end, the bill came due. And that is the warning Rome leaves us. Debt builds empires, but it also destroys them. The question isn't whether history repeats. The question is, who will be next? So if you want to understand how money, wealth, and debt have shaped the past, and how they're shaping our future right now, make sure to subscribe to Financial Nexus, because history doesn't just tell us what happened. It tells us what happens next.